Hello and welcome to Sean Simon's Simon Leads Assessment Debrief page. My name is Suzie Price and I'm one of Sean's partners in coaching. And today I'm going to provide a brief overview of what's measured in your TriMetrixEq assessment. There are three views, or three sciences is another way to say that, in your TriMetrixEq assessment. We have driving forces, which is what fills your tank. It's not visible to others. It's your top motivators, your top drivers. We have the DISC behavioral style assessment, which is measuring what and how you tend to drive. So it is visible to others, and it is how people will perceive you and see you in the ways that you communicate. Usually it's how people tend to describe you. The EQ assessment is under the hood. It is not visible to others. And this science or this view is talking about emotional intelligence. And we're going to go into each one of these sciences. The first one we're going to talk a little bit about so you can understand what it's telling you in the assessment is the driving forces. Keep in mind that there are three views and three sciences. So anytime you see a contradiction between one science or one view or one part of the assessment and another is because something different is being measured. But let's go to driving forces first. I like to talk about and look at that because it's not visible to others, but it does actually drive your behavior. So driving forces is what puts gas in your tank. Again, it's not visible. It's very powerful to know what are your top drivers and what will cause you to want to take action. It also is a recap or some insight into things that you are compelled to do. So it does give you insight into some of your top strengths. So there are different options, and they fall within 6 different categories, which are 6 different areas of interest, things that most interest you. And the 6 different areas are in the area of knowledge, utility, surroundings, others, power, and methodology. And these are all measured on a continuum. So what you'll see in your assessment is your primary cluster, which are your top 4 on this continuum of these areas: knowledge, utilitarian, surrounding, others, power, and methodologies. And you will go into that next. So let's look at that. Let's pull up your report and open your assessment. You'll go to approximately page 32. I say approximately because every report is tailored to you, and so some of the page numbers will be different. So open your report, and you'll go to page 32, and this is a list. If you look in the middle there, you see what I just referenced is the keywords: knowledge, where the arrow is, knowledge, utilitarian, surroundings, others, power, and methodology. And within each one of those areas is a continuum. So if you look at the knowledge, for example, there is instinctive approach to knowledge or an intellectual approach to knowledge. And this person's score, if you see the burgundy there, goes over to 75 out of 100. They are high on that side of knowledge, the intellectual side. So we don't have highs and lows. We just have what is our approach to each one of these keyword motivator areas. And then from there, we look at what is involved in each one of those, things we like to do, what our stressors are, what motivates us. So let's go into that now. When you look at that page, you're going to want to look at and what will be displayed, and when you're looking at the graph, you're looking for the highest scores. So in this particular one, the highest scores on the right-hand side are knowledge, intellectual, and surroundings, harmonious. And with others, this person is very intentional. And if you see the last one down at the bottom around methodologies, very receptive. So their primary cluster, these are the highest scoring areas for this individual. And what they're telling you, their primary cluster is these are your top drivers. So keep in mind that each one of these areas have value. So in this assessment, we're not saying one is better than the other. All of these drivers and motivators can be positive, and all can have a negative effect. It's our job just to understand how we scored the assessment, how the results played out, and then to manage our strengths. So, for example, the high intellectual, one of the strengths is they love research. So research and detail and becoming an expert. And so that's a strength. And if we overuse the strength, there could be a blind spot. So our job is not to change these. It's to become aware of them and use the awareness so that we properly use our strengths and at the same time cover any potential blind spots, because a lot of times our strengths can become our blind spots because we just do them unconsciously. It's what we're normally interested in and we like. So I want to go through each one of the areas. So the 6 areas that you saw when I showed you the vehicle with the champion on the car, the 6 keywords. The first area is knowledge. And so you either scored more on the instinctive side or the intellectual side. And basically the instinctive person only wants to get the knowledge that they need to accomplish the task at hand. So just give me what I need. Don't give me too much information and let me move forward. The intellectual is the other end of the continuum, because we said these keywords around knowledge are a continuum from one side to the other. Intellectual is they want to research and become a product expert on the subject. So as we're going through these, keep in mind a couple of things. One, look at what you scored the highest, your top 4, which we call the primary cluster, and then see where these descriptors land with you. Where did you land? Were you more on the instinctive side around the subject of knowledge? Did you land more on the intellectual side? And on the tools page that Sean has for you, you will see a memory jogger card that gives you a 1-page, 2-sided debrief or insights on each one of these areas. And the first step in using motivators more and using driving forces more is just to understand your own, but you can also use the memory jogger card to start to understand others' drivers. Okay, so we've got theoretical and knowledge. We've touched on that. We've got utilitarian. This is an interest in utility, and the 2 ends of it are selfless and resourceful. Selfless is being concerned with the completion of a task for the sake of completing it, where resourceful is about, okay, if I do this, I would like to get a return. So it's about efficiency and ROI. We see a lot of high resourcefulness in a lot of top salespeople. So if you think about, if I do this work, I get this income paid back. So there's the continuum from utilitarian, I'm selfless on one end, and resourceful on the other. Where did you land? And if one of these is in your top 4 primary cluster, you're going to want to read that part in your report and get an understanding on what it takes to fill your gas tank, so you can consciously use your strengths around this, your top 4. Next, one of the keywords is aesthetic, and this is talking about your approach to surroundings. We have 2 approaches. We have the objective approach, which is I want everything functional and objective. Chaos doesn't bother me. To the opposite end, which is the harmonious. So these are people who are driven by a subjective viewpoint, how things look and feel. They want to have balance and harmony. They want to be the harmony makers in the environment. So where did you land? And that is aesthetic surroundings. Social could be called social altruistic. That word is not there, but it is about how you want to be of service, what's your level of that is a driver for you. And keep in mind that all of these are positive and all of them could be negative. So just because someone scores intentional around social, we're not in this world valuing social intentional, which is I'm going to do things for a specific purpose. I'm very intentional about my service, whereas altruistic is a little bit of the Mother Teresa. I would like to serve others and remove pain in the world. So both have value, and we just want to be aware of where we landed, how we answered the assessment, and how it scored us, because it gives us insight into things that are stressors for us and what fills our tank, as I keep saying. Individualistic is the power keyword, and this is about anywhere from being collaborative to commanding. Collaborative is, don't put me in a position of power. I'd like to be your right hand. I'll be behind the scenes and I'll get things done. Let me collaborate. The commanding is people who are driven by status and would like to lead and advance their position. So where did you land on the continuum, and was this one of your top 4? And last but not least is your approach to methods and procedures and policies. And we have the receptive approach, which is, hey, let's do a new idea. Let's create new things. Let's not stick with the same system, all the way to the opposite other side, which is people who are highly structured in this area, and they're driven by tradition and set processes and procedures. So those are the top keywords for this area of driving forces and the continuum that exists between them. You have another page in your assessment. It's page 31, and it is measuring the intensity of how you scored with each one of these assessments, or each one of these areas. And what you'll see is the blue bar is the population mean. If you look at intellectual for this person, the blue bar is the population, 68% of the population. The mean is the black and stick in the middle there, and the star is where this person scored. So look at your page and pay attention to anything where you scored passionate. So this person scored well above population score because their stars are above 68% of the population. So this intellectual drive around the keyword knowledge is very important to this person's putting energy in their world, putting gas in their gas tank. And so anything that you scored passionate or indifferent are interesting to look at because it just says, okay, you scored this way. Indifferent is I am less interested in this than most. And so there are opportunities for strength building and opportunities to better understand tension with people. If you look at example, the instinctive on this page. So this person, very passionate intellectual, and doesn't approach the knowledge area, is very indifferent for someone who just wants to do it by their intuition. So the opportunity for some tension with someone who approaches knowledge in a more free-form kind of way, less interested in knowledge and just says, hey, don't give me too much information. There can be tension in that relationship. It also can be some synergy once you understand the differences because you all can help each other out. The person who doesn't want to research can lean on the person who does, and then the person who doesn't want to research but just wants the intuition and the insight can lend some balance to the person who might overstudy. So look at the intensity page and just come back to that as you get to learn more about your colleagues and as you look and pay attention to your drivers and what puts gas in your tank. So that's a quick overview of a couple of the key pages in the driving forces assessment of your TriMetrixEq. Now back to what we started with. There are 3 views. Driving forces we just talked about. Next we're going to go into your style. This is what people see. And in the car analogy, it's what and how you tend to drive. So let's look at that now. There are 4 styles. And the reason it's called DISC styles, it's DISC, and you see the languaging there for each one of the styles. And each one of the styles is just a pattern of behavior that we prefer. It's something we've probably done our entire life. It's nature and nurture, how we grew up. We can manage our styles, but it's nice to know what our natural style is because that is some insight into our top strengths. And again, we're back to the words I used earlier. It can be some insights into some blind spots. So let's look at some descriptors. High dominance, the vehicle that we use, we call the high dominance. Somebody who's very strong in dominance. We call them potentially a bulldozer in their style. They can be fast-paced, they're urgent, they talk to think, and it's like, let's get it done, fast-moving, very task-oriented. High influence, the vehicle that we describe their style is the all-terrain vehicle, which is also fast-paced. So you think about an all-terrain vehicle, they move fast. You might have 4 or 5 people in the vehicle with you because you're going to move around and go from place to place. You talk to think, it's about people. and it's about moving fast and making quick decisions and doing lots of things at once. The high steadiness style, the vehicle that we associate with that style, steadiness. Think of the word steady. So what is that? Cautious, a gondola. You see the gondola? The gondola is somebody, if they're the gondola driver, everything's calm and quiet, and they've got people in the gondola, and everybody's relaxed and easy, and we're creating a calm, agreeable environment. And you'll see some of the other descriptors there. There's a memory jogger card that has all of these vehicles on it and a lot more information. And, of course, you'll see a lot more information in your assessment. But let's go to the fourth style, which is the compliance style. And the vehicle that we associate with that, just for memory and to help us understand the styles, is the train. Think of a train. It's on a set track. It goes from point A to point B. So the compliance style is going to be cautious in their pace, pretty analytical. Give me the logic. Let's go from point A to point B. And like the high steadiness, thinks before they talk, which is different from what you get from the bulldozer and all-terrain, the dominance and influence. They talk to think. So we have some differences. The high compliance is task-oriented. You see some similarities with the high dominance. But those are some quick overviews of the four styles. Some famous people. Here's some pictures for you. If you think about their behaviors, this is what this is measuring. Remember, this is just one view of a person, but it is visual in its perceptions of what people see. You see the high influence, friendly, smiling, high steadiness, calm, easygoing, amiable, high compliance, give me the facts. I got neutral facial expressions, give me the details. So that is your DISC assessment overview. We're going to go into I'm going to show you how to read your DISC graph. So if you open your assessment and you go to approximately page 21 or 22, you'll see a graph that looks like this. This is your DISC style, and if you notice across the top, DISC, you want to pay attention at first to the natural style. You'll see that there are numbers scored there from 0 to 100. This person scored all the way to the top, strong tendencies of the high D and I style, and then lower, not as descriptive of the high S and C style, because those are less strong tendencies for this person. So when I shared the descriptions earlier and the famous people, you're going to see more of the bulldozer and more of the all-terrain vehicle. Famous people were Judge Judy for the D, and the I was Ellen DeGeneres. We'll just use some female examples there. And then styles that don't associate, that you wouldn't normally see with this person on a day in, day out, 5 days a week, is they don't do a lot of the gondola, the calm, easy approach, and they don't do the very point A to point B logic. You have to go this step to that step in their style, how they would communicate in a meeting. So look at see anything that's above the 50 line there. You see how it goes from 0 to 100. Look at anything above the 50 line. And then when you look at the DISC memory jogger card on the tools page that's provided here for you by Sean, you'll be able to see some more descriptors for whatever scored for you above the energy line. And, of course, that is what is described in the assessment. All right, so there's our numbers, 0 to 100, and we see the 50. And we're looking at what's above the line on the natural. So what is the adapted? The adapted is how you are changing your style as you took the assessment most recently. And you look for anything that's going up or down. And if you look at the difference between the natural and the adapted on this page, you see the D has gone down quite a bit. The S, the green bar, has gone down quite a bit. Those are the two biggest changes. Anything above 10 you would pay attention to. And what you would look at is, with this graph, this adapted graph changes often. If you were to take this assessment again in 6 months, you might have a different graph. But it's how you are changing your style to meet work demands. And you're going to look at anything that's going up or down, and you're going to want to note any 10-point difference. Here's some insight. I'm not going to read this to you. I'll let you pause the video. But if you're moving something up or down, it gives you some insight in the moment as to what you may be doing with your style right now. And if you think of the previous graph, one of the big movements was the D was going down. So in this person's assessment, we're saying, okay, the moving down section, the D is going down by quite a few points, and this person is being less assertive and challenge oriented. And what do you do with that? Well, you ask yourself these questions. This person I am adapting my style up or down, and it says this: is it working? Is it necessary for my job right now to be making this shift in my style? Is it causing me any stress? That's the second question you can ask yourself. And third, is it a strength revealed? Was I not aware that I'm this style and I'm not fully using the strengths related to it? So adapting your style, it's not good or bad. It's the right thing to do about adapting your style, if you are or aren't, is to ask yourself, if I'm not adapting my style, is it working? Should I be adapting my style? Because sometimes our role may require some of that from us. I want to show you another graph. It's on approximately page 23 of your assessment. It is the disc wheel. It is taking the same information that we've just been talking about with the natural and adapted and just giving you another way to look at it. And if you notice, most of us aren't just one style above the energy line. We're usually a couple. And so if you look at the disc wheel, the D is up at the top right. The D and I are mixed right there under persuader. The I, you see that, the S and the C, and you can see what's in between if somebody's a mix. The further out you are on the wheel, the stronger the tendency is. If you remember the graph for this person, they were very high out of 100. 0 to 100, they're almost 100 on the D and the I. So they scored outside the wheel as persuader. And then the star is how you're adapting. So if you remember that graph on this person, the D was going down and the steadiness was going down. So the star is giving you some insight on where the adapting is. So a couple of things you can do with this wheel. One thing that you can do, and Sean may be sharing this with you, which is you can plot the team on the wheel and start to understand the team dynamics and different preferences and interaction styles by your teammates. You can also look at anyone's style that is across from you. So in this particular example, high persuader, the person across from this person on the other side is the coordinator, so somebody who's a high S and C. So there's lots of opportunity for synergy when you have someone who has opposite preferences and opposite ways of working, also lots of opportunity for conflict. So it's a great opportunity to figure out how you work together and better understand how each of our style preferences can add to the whole and effectiveness of the team, because all the styles matter, just like the motivators. One is not better than the other. It's a matter of knowing what our strengths are, using them, and then managing the blind spots by overusing them. And I always say that a person who understands their style and is managing it based on situations, not only adapting for work when needed, but adapting via email, adapting via conversations, moving towards other people and their needs. Somebody who knows their style and manages it looks very different from someone who just does their style and doesn't manage any of the blind spots and gets into a few stub-your-toe moments or off on the side of the road, to stick with our car analogy, situations. So that is to help you understand the DISC view of the assessment. There's another part of your assessment now that takes what we just talked about, the driving forces, and how you tend to drive, and combines them together to give you some insights around strengths, conflict, your ideal environment, how you like to be managed, what's motivating to you, and it's very tailored to how you answer the assessment and very specific to you. So what I would encourage you to do with these pages is go to those pages. It's approximately on page 35, and highlight your top three and think about, why did I choose those top three, and who do I want to tell this to? Sometimes there'll be conversations between you and your manager, you and a colleague, a family member even, and just talk about these different areas and these different insights. It's a great part of the tool that you can use to create your own development plan. So we've looked at, very quickly, 2 of the 3 views, driving forces and behavioral style, how you tend to drive, and what fills up your tank. Next, let's look at what's under the hood, not visible to others, and we're talking about EQ, emotional intelligence. So what is emotional intelligence? It is the ability to sense, understand, and effectively apply the power of emotions to create collaborative and productive relationships. So we have emotions in the workplace. It's just life. So do I know how to harness those emotions, and can I effectively deal with them as I'm working with people who have different style preferences, different things that put gas in their tank? So there is the definition written out for you. If you want to take a note on that. Now, there are 5 areas that are measured in the assessment: your level of self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. And so the skills for raising EQ can be learned. So if you look, the other 2 sciences, the what puts gas in your tank and your style, how you drive, our goal is not to change any of that. You want to be you and bring the best of you to your work, your strengths, and you want a role that supports or uses those strengths, and then you also just want to manage the blind spots. But what's interesting about this under the hood part, just like in a car, you can tune that engine. You can raise the skills here, and there's lots of research that talks about the power of raising those skills. So people who are superior in their emotional intelligence show a huge difference in higher performance, some as much as 90% higher performance by having strong EQ skills. So it's foundational, and we all have some level of emotional intelligence, because we all deal with emotions and emotional triggers all day, every day. But we can, and Sean's going to show you how to build in each one of those areas. So in your assessment, on approximately page 43, there are the 5 areas listed. What you'll see there is the blue bar. So look, for example, on this one, the self-awareness. The blue bar is this person's score. The red shows you 68% of the population where they landed, and the mean is 7.4. So this person's strongest score appears to be motivation, and there's a definition there: passion to work for reasons that go beyond money or status, and propensity to pursue goals with energy and persistence. So 9.8, very strong score there on emotional intelligence. And then where is their lowest? That's what I would look at if I was you. Look at where you're the strongest, and then look at the lowest, social skills. So this person scored well, but there's always a growth opportunity or a growth edge for us all, especially in leadership and growth in our ability to understand and work with others. And so for this person, the growth edge or opportunity could be in the social skills area. So when you go through your assessment, you will get the following pages go into more definition around each one of these areas and give you some insights on what it would take to improve, and more description around each one of the areas. Last but not least, here's the final section of the assessment. It's on approximately page 52, and it's where we blend your style, how you drive, your driving forces, what puts gas in your tank, and your emotional intelligence, and you're getting some descriptors there, some paragraphs around each one of the areas. So you can see in that first paragraph where it says Mike has, and it talks a little bit about self-awareness, and it's talking about his style. And what you want to look at is see where how you landed and how your style and your drivers come into play around each one of these areas. So that's a quick overview on EQ. We've got driving forces. We've got how you drive. You've got some self-paced resources here that you can use. You've got memory jogger cards that you can download for the style and driving forces. There are short 10-minute videos around emotional intelligence. There's some recommended reading, and if you're doing coaching with Sean, there's an opportunity, an optional coaching call prep form. So that is an overview for you on communication and motivational intelligence, a quick debrief report, and all the best to you. Thank you.